1. Ancient pollen samples telling lost climate stories. Beneath the layers of ancient ice, small grains of pollen have remained undisturbed for thousands, and in some cases, millions of years. These tiny particles are not much to look at under a microscope, but they are time capsules that carry the memory of entire landscapes. When scientists retrieve them from deep ice cores, they can identify what plants were growing during different periods of Earth's history. This allows researchers to reconstruct the climate conditions of long-forgotten ages. Some pollen grains might reveal that vast grasslands once stretched where there are now glaciers. Others might tell of forests teeming with species that have long vanished. By examining the shape and structure of each grain, experts can determine the plant species, the temperature ranges in which it thrived, and even seasonal changes that occurred at the time. The presence or absence of certain pollen types paints a picture of shifting climates. It can show how ice ages advanced and retreated, and how quickly ecosystems responded to warming or cooling trends. These discoveries are not only valuable for understanding the past, they also provide clues for predicting future climate changes. In a way, ancient pollen is like a whisper from a distant world. It tells us about gentle rains that fell on meadows now buried under ice, or about dry winds that once swept over regions that are now frozen solid. As these grains emerge into the light after eons in the dark, they bring with them stories of resilience, adaptation, and transformation. They are reminders that the Earth's climate has always been in motion, and that life has continually reshaped itself to survive. 2. Viking tools frozen in a Norwegian glacier high in the Norwegian mountains, where snow and ice linger year-round. Researchers have stumbled upon tools once used by Viking hunters and travelers. As climate warming causes glaciers to melt, objects that were lost or left behind over 1,000 years ago are appearing at the surface. These finds have included iron arrowheads, wooden shafts, and even fragments of skis that belonged to Norse people navigating treacherous terrain. Each tool offers a glimpse into a world where survival depended on skill, endurance, and an intimate knowledge of the land. The Vikings were not only seafarers, they were also expert hunters who tracked reindeer and other game across icy slopes. Their tools were crafted to withstand harsh conditions, and many remain in remarkably good condition thanks to the preserving power of ice. Some items show signs of repair, indicating that they were treasured possessions carried over long journeys. The wood retains faint marks from the hands that shaped it, while the metal edges of arrowheads still gleam faintly when cleaned. The placement of these finds suggests that certain mountain passes were important travel and hunting routes, even during the coldest centuries. For historians, these tools are more than artifacts. They are evidence of a way of life that adapted to the extremes of the natural world. They show the ingenuity of people who faced dangers such as avalanches, sudden storms, and bitter cold. As each object emerges from the glacier, it bridges the gap between a time when the land was both a resource and a challenge, and our own era, when the ice itself is retreating and revealing its secrets. 3. Perfectly preserved giant squid remains. The ocean hides many mysteries, and some of them have found their way into the frozen grip of ice. In rare cases, the carcass of a giant squid has been discovered, preserved, almost entirely intact within polar ice sheets or frozen coastal waters. These elusive creatures are among the most mysterious of all marine animals, spending their lives in the deep ocean far from human eyes. When a giant squid becomes trapped in freezing water near the poles, the low temperatures can halt the process of decay. Over time, ice locks the body in place, protecting it from scavengers and the natural breakdown that would occur in warmer environments. The result is a hauntingly lifelike preservation, with tentacles, beak, and even the creature's massive eyes still visible. Scientists who study these remains gain an unparalleled opportunity to learn about a species that is rarely seen alive. They can examine the squid's muscle structure, reproductive system, and even the stomach contents to better understand its role in the marine food web. This information can shed light on the mysterious life cycles of deep-sea creatures and their adaptations to extreme pressure and darkness. For many, the sight of such a specimen is both awe-inspiring and eerie. It is a reminder of the alien beauty that thrives beneath the waves and the fragility of life in even the harshest habitats. The giant squid preserved in ice becomes a silent ambassador from a hidden world, carrying with it questions about how much of the ocean's secrets remain beyond our reach. 4. 2,000-year-old wooden ski in Norway. Deep in the Norwegian mountains, where ice covers the land for most of the year, archaeologists made an extraordinary discovery: a 2,000-year-old wooden ski, preserved almost perfectly within a glacier. This was not a modern ski made for leisure. It was a tool of survival, crafted for traversing snowy landscapes during long winters. Its design was practical, with a single binding to hold the foot in place, allowing the user to move steadily over deep snow. What makes this discovery remarkable is not only its age, but also the craftsmanship. The wood is shaped with precision, indicating the maker understood balance, weight distribution, and durability. The surface still bears the marks of the tools that shaped it, giving us a direct connection to the hands that worked on it centuries ago. The glacier's icy embrace shielded the ski from decay, keeping the wood strong and the binding intact. Scientists believe the ski may have been lost during travel or hunting, possibly abandoned after its owner encountered trouble in the treacherous conditions. Nearby, fragments of clothing and hunting gear have also been found, suggesting this route was once an important passageway. This ancient ski offers insight into the daily challenges faced by those who lived in this frozen region. It tells of journeys across vast white expanses where snow could be both a barrier and a bridge. It speaks of ingenuity, of the human drive to adapt to nature's harshest landscapes, and of how long we have relied on our ability to craft tools that allow us to explore, hunt, and survive. 5. Lost camera with decades-old undeveloped film. Sometimes the ice preserves not ancient relics, but deeply personal moments from the more recent past. In one case, a lost camera was discovered, locked in the ice for decades. The device, an older film model, was covered in frost and corrosion, but inside it held something remarkably: undeveloped rolls of film that had been frozen since the day the camera was lost. Carefully removed and developed under controlled conditions, the photographs revealed snapshots of a time long gone. They showed smiling faces, distant mountains, and moments of adventure in a landscape that has now changed or even disappeared. The cold had acted as a natural freezer, halting the chemical processes that would have destroyed the images. These photographs not only documented the people and scenery of that time, but they also carried an emotional weight. They were pieces of someone's personal story, a glimpse into the life and relationships of individuals who may no longer be here to tell their tales. Each image became a time portal, connecting the present to a moment captured by a steady hand long ago. The discovery serves as a reminder that ice is not only a preserver of ancient history, but also of recent human experiences. It can lock away memories, freezing them in place until the day they are found and brought back to life for new eyes to see. 6. Wreck of Shackleton's Endurance. One of the most legendary shipwrecks in history lies beneath the icy waters of the Antarctic. Sir Ernest Shackleton's Endurance. In 1915, during his Imperial Transantarctic expedition, the ship became trapped in thick sea ice and was eventually crushed by its pressure. The crew endured months of hardship before making a miraculous escape, but the ship itself was lost to the deep. For over a century, the exact location of the Endurance remained a mystery, hidden beneath the freezing waters and drifting ice. Then, in 2022, a team of researchers finally located the wreck. To their astonishment, it was in an extraordinary state of preservation. The cold, oxygen-poor environment had prevented significant decay, leaving the hull and even the ship's name clearly visible. Exploring the wreck revealed a hauntingly intact time capsule of early 20th century exploration. Wooden beams, ropes, and equipment were all in place, as if waiting for the crew to return. It stands as a testament to human resilience, courage, and the will to push into the most dangerous frontiers on Earth. For those who follow the story of polar exploration, the Endurance is more than a wreck. It is a symbol of survival against impossible odds, preserved in the cold embrace of the Antarctic until the day it was rediscovered. 7. Fossils of unknown marine species beneath the layers of ancient ice. Far from the reach of sunlight, scientists have made discoveries that hint at entire worlds we never knew existed. These finds come in the form of fossils belonging to marine creatures that are unlike any animals alive today. The remains are often preserved in sediment that has been sealed away for millions of years, held in the frozen grip of glaciers or deep polar permafrost. Each fossil tells a story, even when the identity of the creature remains unknown. Some have delicate spiraled shells that suggest they floated in warm, shallow seas. Others have unusual skeletal patterns that do not match any known lineage. There are fragments of what may be soft-bodied organisms, creatures without bones whose existence is rarely captured in the fossil record. Their presence in the polar ice reveals that these regions were once far warmer and teeming with life. To uncover these mysteries, researchers must carefully extract the fossils without exposing them to rapid changes in temperature. In laboratories, they are examined under microscopes and sometimes scanned in 3 dimensions to capture every curve and ridge. This helps paleontologists build models of what the animals might have looked like. The true mystery lies in what these species represent. Were they early ancestors of marine animals we know today, or were they evolutionary experiments that vanished without leaving descendants? Some could be entirely unique branches of life that evolved and disappeared long before humans appeared. Finding these fossils is more than a scientific achievement, it is a bridge to a lost era. It reveals how dramatically Earth's climate and geography have shifted over time. The seas that once supported these unknown creatures are now locked beneath ice, and the fossils remain as their final testimony, whispering the story of oceans that vanished into cold silence. 8. Zombie microbes revived from ancient ice. In the frozen heart of the Earth's polar regions lie microorganisms that have been trapped for tens of thousands of years. These are often called zombie microbes, not because they are monstrous, but because they have been locked in a suspended state of life. For centuries or even millennia, they have endured in the cold, inactive but not dead, waiting for the moment when warmth returns and they can awaken. When scientists melt cores of ancient ice in specialized laboratories, they sometimes witness something extraordinary. These microorganisms stir back to life. They move, they feed, and they even reproduce, as if no time has passed. Some are similar to bacteria and algae we know today, while others are entirely unfamiliar to science. Their survival offers powerful clues about the resilience of life and its ability to adapt to even the harshest conditions. Researchers handle these samples with extreme care, not only to protect themselves from unknown pathogens, but also to preserve the microorganisms in their original state. Studying them can reveal secrets about how life began on Earth, and how it might exist on icy moons like Europa or in the frozen soils of Mars. Some of these revived microbes date back to times when mammoths roamed the tundra, when vast grasslands covered areas that are now covered in ice. Their presence is a living connection to ancient ecosystems that have otherwise vanished. It also serves as a reminder that ice is not simply a barrier to life, it can be a cradle, preserving it until the right conditions return. This discovery is both humbling and thought-provoking. It forces us to reconsider what it means for life to truly end, and it invites us to imagine where else in the universe something similar might be waiting in frozen silence. 9. Mysterious black ice formations in certain remote places where winter cold is unbroken for months. A rare and beautiful phenomenon appears: vast expanses of black ice. Despite the name, the ice is not actually black, it is crystal clear. It looks dark because it allows you to see straight through to the deep water or frozen ground beneath. This clarity happens only when the water freezes slowly and perfectly, without trapping bubbles, sediment, or cracks. To encounter black ice is to stand on what feels like a sheet of pure glass. Sometimes, it is so transparent that you can see fish swimming below, weeds waving in the current, or stones resting far beneath your feet. The effect is mesmerizing, but can also be disorienting. Many travelers have described feeling as if they were floating in mid-air. Black ice can preserve what lies beneath it for weeks, months, or even years. Objects trapped under its surface remain visible, locked in time like items sealed inside a display case. In some cases, researchers have found ancient tools, animal remains, and plant fragments perfectly visible through this natural window. Because it is so pure, black ice can also be stronger than ordinary ice of the same thickness, although it is far more slippery. In the polar regions, black ice can stretch for hundreds of meters, reflecting the sky so vividly that it seems to merge with the horizon. In the right light, it becomes a mirror for the sun, the moon, and the stars. It is a reminder of nature's artistry, a work of beauty created from nothing more than water and cold. For scientists, these formations are not just a visual wonder, they are an opportunity. They provide clues about the freezing process, climate conditions, and the purity of the water beneath. For explorers, they are both an awe-inspiring sight and a cautionary reminder of the hidden depths waiting below. 10. Mammoth DNA samples hidden in ice cores. Deep within the frozen layers of Earth's polar regions, Scientists have recovered traces of mammoth DNA preserved in ice cores. These samples are microscopic fragments of genetic material left behind when mammoths roamed the tundra during the Ice Age. Over thousands of years, wind, water, and melting cycles carried tiny bits of skin, hair, and other biological material into the snow. Once buried and frozen, they became locked away in layers of ice that act like a time capsule. By drilling deep into glaciers and permafrost, researchers extract cylindrical sections called ice cores. Each layer represents a different period in history, much like the rings of a tree. When the mammoth DNA is carefully isolated and studied, scientists can piece together details about the species, including how they evolved, what they ate, and even how their bodies adapted to extreme cold. Some researchers hope that the genetic information could one day help bring certain traits of mammoths back to life, not necessarily through cloning an entire animal, but by using modern technology to study and possibly revive cold-resistant genes. These ice cores do more than hold DNA. They also preserve clues about the environment where mammoths lived. Trapped pollen, dust, and chemical signatures reveal what the climate was like, what plants were present, and how the mammoth's world changed over time. This combination of genetic and environmental evidence paints a vivid picture of a vanished ecosystem. It is a reminder that the frozen world holds far more than just ice. It holds the blueprints of life itself, waiting patiently for human hands and curious minds to uncover its secrets. 11. World War II fighter planes buried in Greenland's ice. Lost Squadron. In 1942, during World War II, a squadron of American fighter planes was forced to make an emergency landing on the vast ice sheet of Greenland. Harsh weather and technical difficulties meant the planes could not be recovered immediately. Over the decades that followed, relentless snowfall and shifting glaciers buried them deeper and deeper beneath the surface. The aircraft became known as the Lost Squadron, their exact location a mystery for nearly 50 years. Explorers and historians knew they were somewhere under the ice, but the challenge was finding them in a landscape that is constantly moving and changing. Finally, in the early 1990s, after years of searching with ground-penetrating radar, a team located one of the planes 264 feet below the surface. When they began excavating, they found the aircraft astonishingly well preserved. Despite its long entombment, the ice had acted like a protective shell, shielding it from the corrosion and decay that would have destroyed it in open air. The recovered plane, nicknamed Glacier Girl, was painstakingly restored and eventually returned to flight. The story of the Lost Squadron is more than just a tale of aviation history. It is a testament to human persistence and the power of nature to both hide and protect what lies within it. Beneath the ice, history had been waiting silently for its moment to return to the sky. 12. Frozen mummies in the Andes Mountains. High in the Andes Mountains, explorers and archaeologists have uncovered frozen human remains, so well preserved that they appear to be merely sleeping. These mummies, often found at extreme altitudes, date back hundreds of years and are believed to be the result of ritual sacrifices performed by ancient civilizations such as the Inca. The combination of cold temperatures, low oxygen, and dry mountain air created perfect conditions for preservation. Skin, hair, and clothing remain intact, offering an extraordinary glimpse into the lives of these people. Scientists can study the mummies to learn about their diet, health, and the ceremonial practices of their time. Many of these discoveries are found in remote locations that require dangerous climbs to reach. Once found, the mummies are carefully studied in controlled environments to prevent any damage from exposure to warmth or humidity. The emotional impact of seeing such lifelike preservation is profound. It feels as though time itself has been paused, holding these individuals in the moment they last breathed. They are silent witnesses to an ancient world, telling their stories through the objects buried with them and the clothes they still wear. These frozen mummies are both archaeological treasures and cultural symbols, linking the modern world to the beliefs and traditions of people who lived centuries ago. In their stillness, they connect past and present across the cold heights of the Andes. 13. Perfectly spherical ice boulders on Finnish shores along certain Finnish beaches. Especially during particularly cold winters, a rare and beautiful phenomenon occurs: the formation of perfectly spherical ice boulders. These rounded shapes can range from the size of a small pebble to larger than a basketball, and they appear in scattered clusters across the shoreline. The process that forms them is entirely natural, yet it feels almost artistic, as if the ocean and wind have worked together to create frozen sculptures. The spheres begin as small pieces of ice or slush floating near the shore. As waves push them gently back and forth in freezing water, thin layers of ice gradually build up around the core. The motion of the waves naturally smooths the edges, rounding them over time. The colder the air and water, the faster these layers form, creating the polished appearance that makes them so striking. When weather conditions align, perfectly calm winds, steady waves, and sub-zero temperatures, large groups of these spheres can form together. As the tide recedes, they are left resting neatly on the sand, shimmering in the pale winter sunlight. Photographs of these beaches have spread worldwide, capturing the wonder of people who have never seen such formations before. Scientists point out that these ice boulders are rare because the conditions must be so precise. Even slight changes in wind strength or temperature can disrupt the process. That rarity makes them even more special when they do appear. For local residents, spotting these natural ice marbles is a sign of winter's beauty, a reminder that even in the coldest months, nature can still surprise with moments of delicate artistry frozen in time. 14. Massive ice caves with blue glass walls in some of the world's coldest and most remote regions. There are ice caves so breathtaking that stepping inside feels like entering a world made entirely of blue crystal. These caves are carved out of glaciers or formed by melting and refreezing cycles that hollow out passages beneath thick ice sheets. When sunlight filters through the dense ice, it scatters in such a way that the walls glow with a rich, deep blue, almost as if they are made of solid glass. The creation of these caves begins when meltwater from the surface finds a path downward through cracks and crevasses. Over time, flowing water enlarges these spaces, shaping winding tunnels and domes. As winter returns, the water freezes again, locking the cave in a still, frozen state until the next thaw. Inside, the silence is almost absolute, broken only by the occasional drip of water or faint creak of shifting ice. The air feels crisp and still, as if time itself has slowed. The walls, smooth to the touch, can be clear enough to see bubbles or layers formed centuries ago. Each layer is a frozen record of past winters, storms, and climate shifts. Exploring these caves is both beautiful and dangerous. They can collapse unexpectedly or flood during sudden melts, so only experienced guides and scientists usually enter. Yet for those who see them, the experience is unforgettably a glimpse into nature's frozen architecture, where light and ice create one of the most enchanting sights on Earth. 15. A perfectly preserved 1800s whiskey cache. In the late 1800s, a ship carrying supplies to remote Arctic explorers became trapped in sea ice. Among its cargo were bottles of whiskey, packed securely in wooden crates. Over a century later, when the wreck was rediscovered, researchers were astonished to find that some of these bottles had survived intact, sealed and preserved in the freezing conditions. Cold temperatures acted as nature's perfect storage system. The corks remained tight, the glass unbroken, and the liquid inside unchanged by time. Even the wooden crates were remarkably well preserved, protected from decay by the ice's constant cold. The discovery was more than a curiosity, it was a piece of history. The whiskey told a story about the explorers, who braved harsh conditions and brought comforts from home into the most inhospitable places on Earth. In some cases, chemical analysis of the preserved whiskey has provided insight into 19th century distilling techniques and the kinds of flavors favored by people of the era. Finding such a cache is rare. Many shipwrecks succumb to the slow damage of salt water, shifting ice, and storms, but in this case, the Arctic's deep freeze kept the cargo untouched, as if waiting for someone to return. Standing on the deck of the ice-locked wreck, holding a bottle sealed over 100 years ago, is to stand in direct contact with a moment from another century. The whiskey, once meant to warm explorers on long polar nights, had instead waited silently beneath the ice for over 100 years. 16 ancient arrowheads emerging from retreating ice in recent decades. As glaciers around the world have receded due to warming temperatures, archaeologists have been making remarkable discoveries. Arrowheads, spear tips, and other hunting tools that have been hidden within the ice for centuries or even millennia. Many of these artifacts are found in high mountain passes, where ancient hunters once stalked reindeer, elk, or other game. When a hunting trip ended with a lost arrow or spear, the cold quickly buried it beneath layers of snow and ice. locking it away from decay. These tools are often made from stone, bone, or antler, with wooden shafts sometimes still intact, thanks to the ice's preservation. They tell detailed stories about the people who made them, how they crafted their tools, the animals they hunted, and even the trade routes they might have used to acquire certain materials. In some cases, the craftsmanship suggests knowledge shared across cultures, hinting at ancient connections between distant communities. Finding these arrowheads is both thrilling and bittersweet for archaeologists. Each piece offers valuable insight into human history, but it also serves as a reminder of how quickly the ice is disappearing. Some discoveries occur purely by chance, when hikers, shepherds, or scientists spot something unusual sticking out of the melting snow. Once recovered, the artifacts are carefully preserved and studied. Carbon dating and microscopic analysis can reveal when they were made and how they were used. The retreating ice is revealing a hidden record of human activity in some of the most remote regions of the world, offering a fleeting window into the lives of hunters who walked those same paths thousands of years ago. These finds connect us to a time when survival depended on skill, patience, and deep knowledge of the natural world. 17. Sea monster carcasses in Greenland's ice. Legend. Among the most chilling tales passed down by sailors and explorers of the far north are those of sea monsters found frozen in the ice. While many such stories are likely exaggerations or misinterpretations of real creatures, they persist in the folklore of Greenland and Arctic regions. In these accounts, fishermen describe massive, unrecognizable carcasses trapped in slabs of drifting ice creatures with twisted limbs, enormous jaws, or serpentine bodies that do not match any known species. Some legends may have begun when explorers encountered whale remains, basking sharks, or giant squid in states of decay that altered their appearance. The harsh Arctic environment can freeze and preserve these bodies for extended periods, making them seem almost alive in their suspended state. When sea ice breaks apart, it can carry such remains great distances, allowing them to be spotted unexpectedly along coasts or by passing ships. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, newspapers occasionally printed sensational stories about such discoveries, often accompanied by exaggerated sketches. These tales fueled public fascination with the idea of undiscovered creatures still lurking in the world's oceans. While modern science has not verified the existence of these monsters, the legend remains part of Greenland's maritime heritage. For those who live in coastal communities, these stories are not just entertainment, but reminders of the ocean's mystery and unpredictability. Whether rooted in reality or imagination, they capture the feeling of standing on the frozen shore, looking out at a vast icy expanse where anything might be hidden beneath the surface. In the stillness of Arctic winter, it is easy to believe that the ice itself may be holding on to secrets from a time before humans ever sailed those waters. 18. Rivers flowing under glaciers. Beneath the seemingly solid and unmoving surface of glaciers lies a hidden world of flowing water. These subglacial rivers form when pressure and geothermal heat melt ice at the glacier's base. The meltwater then carves out channels, creating networks of streams that can flow for miles under the ice before emerging into the open. The discovery of these rivers has changed scientists' understanding of glaciers. Far from being static, these massive ice sheets are dynamic systems influenced by the water moving within them. The rivers act as natural lubricants, allowing glaciers to slide more quickly toward the sea. In some cases, the presence of these rivers has been linked to sudden surges in glacier movement, which can have significant effects on sea levels and coastal erosion. Exploring these rivers is no easy task. Researchers often detect them indirectly, using radar that can penetrate the ice and reveal the water's location. In rare cases, meltwater channels have been accessed through natural openings called Milans vertical shafts in the ice that lead directly to the rivers below. The water in these subglacial rivers is often rich in minerals. Having been in contact with rock and sediment for long periods, some rivers even support unique microbial life that has adapted to complete darkness and near-freezing temperatures. This discovery raises intriguing questions about whether similar environments could exist on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus, where life might survive far beneath the surface. Beneath a glacier, in that cold, lightless environment, the sound of rushing water would be muffled but constant. It is a reminder that even in the most frozen places on Earth, there is movement and life, hidden away under a blanket of ice. 19 Roman-era coins preserved in mountain ice, high in the mountain passes of Europe, where snow lingers year-round and the air is thin and still. Archaeologists have made remarkable discoveries: coins from the Roman era, preserved for centuries in ice and snow. These coins, often made of bronze or silver, were likely carried by merchants, soldiers, or travelers making their way through remote alpine routes. The passes served as vital connections between regions of the Roman Empire, allowing the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture. Some coins may have been lost accidentally, slipping from pouches during a rest or falling during a snowstorm. Others may have been intentionally left as offerings to the gods, a common practice in ancient times when travelers sought protection for their journey through dangerous terrain. The ice that enveloped them acted as a perfect time capsule, preventing corrosion and wear, so that even after centuries, the inscriptions and images remain surprisingly clear. Each coin tells a story. The faces of emperors, symbols of authority, and inscriptions of loyalty speak to the power and reach of Rome. The discovery of such coins in isolated places shows how far Roman influence extended and how connected even distant mountain communities were to the larger empire. When these coins are found today, researchers analyze their composition, minting style, and date, piecing together trade routes and migration patterns. Sometimes they appear alongside other artifacts, such as fragments of clothing, tools, or animal remains, offering a broader glimpse into the life of ancient travelers. The silent, frozen resting places of these coins remind us that even the most imposing natural barriers could not halt human movement or ambition, and that stories from 2,000 years ago can still emerge, glinting faintly in the melting snow. 20. Meteorites preserved in Antarctic ice. The icy expanse of Antarctica is one of the best places on Earth to find meteorites. The process is almost magical in its simplicity. When meteorites fall onto the continent, the ice sheet gradually carries them along with its slow, glacial movement. As the ice flows toward mountain ranges, it is forced upward and begins to sublimate, leaving the meteorites exposed on the surface. Because Antarctica's environment is so cold and dry, these space rocks can remain incredibly well preserved for tens of thousands of years. Scientists are drawn to Antarctic meteorites because they provide untouched samples from the early solar system. Some contain minerals and chemical compounds that formed billions of years ago, long before Earth itself existed. Others carry clues about the geology of Mars or the Moon, having been blasted off those worlds by ancient impacts and eventually finding their way here. The search for meteorites is a painstaking process. Researchers venture into remote blue ice fields, where winds have scoured the surface free of snow. In these stark, shimmering landscapes, meteorites stand out as dark specks against the pale background. Every find is carefully catalogued and shipped to laboratories for detailed study. Meteorites preserved in ice can also reveal organic compounds, including amino acids, which are essential to life. While not proof of extraterrestrial organisms, such discoveries fuel the idea that the building blocks of life could be widespread in the universe. Holding a meteorite from Antarctica is like touching a fragment of cosmic history, one that has traveled through space for eons, landed on Earth, and then waited quietly beneath the ice for a human hand to uncover it. It is a meeting of two worlds, the frozen stillness of our planet and the endless, silent journey of the stars. 21. Entire fishing vessels locked in Arctic ice floes. In the Arctic's remote waters, where winter ice spreads like an unbroken white sheet, there are tales both documented and legendary of entire fishing vessels trapped and entombed within shifting ice floes. Sometimes these ships were caught unexpectedly by early freezes, leaving their crews stranded and forcing them to abandon their livelihoods and even their lives to the frozen sea. The ice does not simply freeze around a ship. It grips it with a slow, crushing force. Wooden hulls can creak and splinter under the pressure, while steel ones groan until they buckle. In some cases, the ship remains upright, locked in place as though frozen mid-voyage. In others, the ice slowly swallows it, tilting it on its side before pulling it beneath the surface. Over the years, explorers and satellite images have revealed ghostly shapes embedded in the ice-dark outlines that hint at human tragedy and resilience. Some vessels have been found decades later, remarkably well preserved in the cold. Fishing gear, personal belongings, and even provisions remain in place, sealed away from decay by the deep freeze. These finds are more than maritime curiosities. They are historical records of the dangers faced by Arctic fishing communities. Each vessel tells of a crew's final, desperate days, their battle against nature's unyielding grip. In some cases, surviving records or oral histories from nearby settlements can be matched with the wrecks, piecing together the last chapter of a voyage. 22. 5,300-year-old DSI, the Iceman in the Alps in 1991. Two hikers in the Etzdal Alps, along the Austrian-Italian border, stumbled upon what at first appeared to be a modern mountaineer frozen in ice. The discovery soon proved extraordinary. The body was over 5,000 years old, belonging to a man who lived during the Copper Age, nicknamed "See the Iceman." He is one of the best preserved natural mummies ever found. The ice had preserved not only his body, but also his clothing, tools, and even the contents of his last meal. He wore a grass cloak, leather shoes stuffed with insulating grass, and a coat made of animal hides. His equipment included a copper axe remarkable for its time arrows, and a small dagger. Examinations revealed tattoos on his skin, possibly for therapeutic or ritual purposes, and evidence of an arrow wound in his back, suggesting a violent end. The preservation was so complete that scientists could study his DNA, revealing details about his ancestry, health conditions, and even the presence of Lyme disease. Cece's final days seem to have been spent traveling through high mountain passes, perhaps fleeing or hunting. His body, quickly covered by snow and then ice, lay undisturbed for millennia until the glacier's slow retreat revealed him once more. The story of CI bridges the gap between modern science and ancient life. His discovery has deepened our understanding of early human technology, diet, and social conflict. Today, he rests in a specially designed museum in Bolzano, Italy, where climate-controlled conditions replicate the glacial environment that preserved him for so long. Visitors gaze upon his silent form, reminded that the mountains hold not just beauty, but also the frozen echoes of human history. 23. Ancient giant viruses revived from Siberian permafrost. Deep within the frozen soils of Siberia lies a time capsule of microbial life, locked away for tens of thousands of years. In recent decades, scientists have discovered and even revived giant viruses from this ancient permafrost. These are not the small, simple viruses most people imagine. They are unusually large, with complex structures and genetic material unlike anything seen in modern viruses. One such virus, Pithovirus sibitricum, was found in a 30,000-year-old sample of permafrost and successfully reactivated under laboratory conditions. While these revived viruses are harmless to humans, their existence raises profound questions about life's resilience and the possibility of ancient pathogens surviving in frozen environments. The process of revival is delicate and highly controlled. Scientists carefully thaw samples in sterile conditions and observe them under microscopes, watching as these long-dormant organisms spring back to activity. Such studies help researchers understand viral evolution and how viruses adapt or remain unchanged over immense spans of time. The melting of permafrost due to climate change adds urgency to this research. As the frozen ground thaws, it may release microbes and viruses that have not been in contact with the modern world for thousands of years. Most will pose no threat, but the mere possibility captures scientific and public imagination alike. Giant viruses from the permafrost challenge our definitions of life. They blur the line between the living and the non-living, existing in a suspended state for millennia before resuming activity when conditions allow. In their strange, icy crypts, they have patiently waited, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of human civilizations, emerging only when the frozen earth reluctantly loosens its grip. 24. Volcanic ash trapped for millennia. Glaciers and ice sheets are not just reservoirs of frozen water, they are also layered archives of Earth's history. In some of these layers, scientists have found fine particles of volcanic ash, preserved for thousands of years. Each layer of ash is a timestamp, marking the moment when a distant volcano erupted, sending plumes high into the atmosphere. As the ash drifted across continents, it eventually settled onto snow-covered landscapes. Over time, new snowfall buried it, and the weight compressed it into the ice. This process locked the particles in place, creating a chronological record that scientists can read like pages in a book. Studying volcanic ash trapped in ice reveals much about past climates and the global impact of eruptions. Some ash layers are linked to famous events, such as the eruption of Iceland's volcano in the 10th century, which may have affected harvests and weather across Europe. Others trace back to prehistoric eruptions that shaped ecosystems long before written history. The ash particles themselves can be analyzed for their chemical composition, helping researchers identify the volcano of origin. This, in turn, allows scientists to map the reach of ancient eruptions and assess their influence on atmospheric conditions. In a quiet laboratory, tiny shards of volcanic glass snow, larger than grains of sand, are examined under microscopes, telling stories of fire and ice intertwined. The glaciers that hold them become more than frozen landscapes. They are libraries of natural history, preserving not only the chill of past winters, but also the memory of the Earth's most powerful and fiery outbursts. 25. Massive hidden mountain ranges beneath Antarctica. Beneath Antarctica's thick ice lies a world few have seen: vast mountain ranges, some taller than the Alps, stretching for hundreds of miles. These are the Gamburtsov Mountains, first detected by Soviet scientists in 1958 during seismic surveys. The mountains are completely buried under more than 2 miles of ice, making them invisible to the human eye, yet remarkably well preserved by the frozen cover. Their origin remains a mystery. Unlike young mountain ranges formed by recent tectonic collisions, the Gamburtsov Mountains are thought to be ancient, perhaps over 1 billion years old. Ice-penetrating radar has revealed jagged peaks, deep valleys, and possible rivers of liquid water flowing far below the ice sheet. The preservation of these mountains is so complete that some scientists describe them as frozen in time. It is believed that the overlying ice has shielded them from erosion, keeping their features sharp and distinct. This unique environment could offer clues about the Earth's geological past, including the processes that shaped ancient continents. Accessing these mountains directly is nearly impossible, but remote sensing continues to unveil new details. Each new survey deepens the sense of awe that such towering landscapes could remain, completely hidden beneath one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. In this secret, ice-locked world, the peaks have stood in silence for millions of years, waiting for technology and human curiosity to reveal their form. 26. Inuit hunting camps preserved in ice in the high Arctic, where the wind sweeps over frozen seas and snow-covered tundra. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient Inuit hunting camps preserved in the ice. These sites, often located along historic migration routes of caribou and seals, provide a glimpse into the ingenuity and resilience of a culture that thrived in extreme conditions. The remains include stone tent rings, where large rocks once held down skin-covered shelters, along with bone tools, harpoon heads, and cooking hearths. In some places, traces of dried seal meat or fish bones remain, preserved in the cold for centuries. The tools reveal a deep understanding of seasonal hunting patterns, ice travel, and the behavior of Arctic animals. Ice preservation has kept even fragile organic materials intact, allowing researchers to study clothing, rope, and wooden sled components. These finds tell stories of families traveling together, preparing food over open fires, and crafting equipment to survive the long winters. The camps are more than just archaeological sites. They are direct links to ancestors whose survival depended on an intimate relationship with ice, snow, and wildlife. As climate change causes ice to recede, these hidden sites are emerging, offering knowledge but also the risk of rapid decay once exposed. Each discovery is a reminder that life has always found a way to adapt to the Arctic's frozen beauty. 27. Submerged rail cars frozen in Canadian lakes. In certain remote regions of Canada, divers and winter explorers have discovered a strange sight beneath the ice: entire rail cars, long forgotten, resting in the cold depths of frozen lakes. These accidents often date back to the early 20th century, when trains transporting goods across icy landscapes faced dangerous crossings on temporary rail bridges or frozen waterways. Sometimes, a section of ice would give way under the immense weight of the train, sending cars plunging into the water below. In other cases, floods and shifting ice during spring thaws swept away sections of track, taking the rail cars with them. Preserved in the frigid water, these metal giants sit eerily still, often upright, with cargo still inside. Divers report seeing wooden crates, rusted tools, and sometimes machinery, all perfectly undisturbed. The cold, oxygen-poor environment slows decay, turning the lake bottoms into time capsules. For historians, these submerged relics tell stories about early transportation challenges, the risks of winter rail travel, and the determination of communities to move goods across vast and frozen distances. For modern-day explorers, they are surreal monuments, a meeting of industrial ambition and the unyielding power of nature's ice and water. 28. Supposed Atlantis artifacts under Antarctic ice. Legend. There are legends that claim the icy deserts of Antarctica may conceal ruins of an ancient, advanced civilization, possibly even the mythical Atlantis. This idea stems from unusual satellite images showing geometric shapes beneath the ice, combined with interpretations of ancient maps like the Peary Race map, which some say depicts Antarctica's coastline free of ice. Supporters of the theory imagine sprawling stone cities, pyramids, and monumental sculptures hidden under miles of snow and frozen rock. The scientific community largely dismisses these claims, explaining the satellite anomalies as natural ice formations or geological features. However, the mystery persists in the public imagination. Expeditions have been suggested, but the extreme conditions, political restrictions under the Antarctic Treaty, and sheer thickness of the ice make direct investigation nearly impossible. The allure of this legend is not necessarily in proving it true, but in the possibility that the frozen continent might hold relics from a time when the Earth looked very different. During certain warm periods millions of years ago, Antarctica was covered in forests and possibly supported life. Whether human civilizations ever touched it remains unproven, yet the stories keep circulating, inspiring books, documentaries, and speculation. Even if the legend remains fiction, it serves as a reminder that vast stretches of our planet remain unexplored, their secrets locked away in places we cannot easily reach. The thought of an ancient city sleeping under ice for thousands of years is a powerful image, one that sparks both wonder and curiosity. 29. Buried forests, still standing upright under glaciers. Beneath some retreating glaciers, scientists have found the remains of ancient forests, their trees still standing upright, just as they grew thousands of years ago. These forests were buried during sudden glacial advances, sealed away under layers of ice and sediment. In places like Alaska and Patagonia, melting ice has revealed stumps, roots, and even bark so well preserved that you can still see growth rings. These trees provide a direct record of climate history. By studying the rings, researchers can determine rainfall patterns, drought periods, and even volcanic eruptions from centuries before. The species of trees tell us about the ecosystem that once thrived there, painting a picture of valleys filled with green instead of white. What is particularly striking is the sense of time frozen in place. The trees did not fall or decayed, they were simply engulfed, left to stand in total darkness beneath the ice for millennia. In some cases, they have been preserved for more than 3,000 years. Their emergence due to modern glacier retreat is both a gift and a warning. On one hand, they allow us to study the Earth's history in extraordinary detail. On the other, they are appearing because the ice that protected them is vanishing, a sign of changing climates today. Still, there is a quiet beauty in these ghostly forests, standing as sentinels of an age long gone. 30. A Bronze Age leather shoe in Armenia's ice caves. In 2010, archaeologists made an extraordinary discovery in an Armenian cave, a leather shoe over 5,500 years old, dating back to the Bronze Age. Remarkably, the shoe was still intact, with laces stitching, and a shape not unlike modern footwear. It was preserved so perfectly because it had been buried under layers of sheep dung and sealed in the cave's cool, stable environment. The shoe was made from a single piece of cowhide, shaped to fit the foot snugly, and stuffed with grass for warmth or to maintain its shape. Its size suggests it may have belonged to a woman, but this is uncertain. This find predates even the famous the Iceman by several centuries, making it one of the oldest known leather shoes in the world. Beyond its age, the shoe offers insight into ancient craftsmanship. The precision of the stitching shows skill, and the design suggests comfort and durability were priorities, even thousands of years ago. It also hints at trade or resource sharing, as the materials may have come from distant areas. Finding such an object in a preserved state is incredibly rare. It bridges the gap between the distant past and the present, reminding us that human needs protection, warmth, and mobility have not changed over millennia. This simple leather shoe carries with it the silent steps of its owner, echoing through history from a time when survival meant living closely with the land. 31. Prehistoric steppe bison in the frozen soils of Siberia and Alaska. scientists have uncovered the remains of prehistoric steppe bison, preserved with astonishing detail. These massive creatures roamed the Earth during the Ice Age, sharing the tundra with woolly mammoths, cave lions, and early humans. Some of these bison have been found with their fur, muscles, and even internal organs intact. Thanks to the permafrost acting like nature's freezer for tens of thousands of years, the steppe bison was larger than most modern bison, with long, curved horns and a thick coat that shielded it from bitter winds. These animals grazed on grasses and hardy plants, moving in herds across vast plains. When they became trapped in bogs, buried by snow, or fell into frozen rivers, they could be quickly covered by sediment and ice, sealing their bodies away from decay. One particularly well-known specimen, nicknamed Blue Babe, was discovered in Alaska in 1979. Its golden brown fur and sturdy frame was so well preserved that scientists were able to determine its cause of death: wounds from an Ice Age predator, likely a lion. These finds have provided valuable information about Pleistocene ecosystems, diet patterns, and even ancient predators. For many, the sight of a preserved steppe bison is like looking through a window into a vanished world. These animals once thundered across cold landscapes in great numbers, their presence shaping the environment and the lives of early humans who hunted them. Today, their frozen remains are like messengers from deep time, reminding us of an Earth far wilder and colder than we know now. 32. Carvings etched into glacial walls. Glaciers are living giants, flowing slowly over centuries, grinding rock into fine powder and shaping valleys. Yet in rare and protected areas, deep inside glacial caves or along stable ice walls, researchers have discovered something unexpected: human-made carvings. These etchings vary from simple lines and tally marks to elaborate images of animals, human figures, or abstract patterns. Some are thousands of years old, created by hands that braved the cold long before modern equipment existed. The permanence of these markings comes from the stability of the ice itself. In certain cold caves, the temperature never rises above freezing, and there is little melting or movement. Here, a carving made with a stone blade or metal tool can remain sharp and visible for centuries. Some researchers suggest these were made by ancient hunters marking shelter locations, recording successful hunts, or creating maps to guide others through dangerous terrain. Others believe they may have had a spiritual or ceremonial role, perhaps linked to seasonal changes or important cultural events. Imagine a small group gathered in the blue glow of an ice cavern, scratching symbols into the frozen wall as a way of leaving their presence behind in an otherwise impermanent world. In more recent history, explorers and mountaineers have added their own marks, names, expedition dates, or route indicators, though these carry less mystery than the ancient ones. Still, each carving, whether old or new, is a connection between human intention and nature's unyielding stillness. Standing before these frozen engravings, one can almost feel the moment of their creation: a hand pressing a tool into hard ice, breath visible in the frigid air, the sound of the blade scraping against the wall. They are fragile in substance, yet enduring in time, proof that even in the coldest, most remote corners of the planet, people have always found ways to leave their stories behind. 33. Dog sleds abandoned in Arctic expeditions. The frozen Arctic holds many relics from a time when daring explorers sought to map the ends of the Earth. Among the most poignant of these relics are abandoned dog sleds, often discovered half buried under snowdrifts or locked in thick ice. These sleds were once lifelines, carrying food, fuel, and essential gear across hundreds of miles of hostile terrain. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, known as the heroic age of polar exploration, dog sleds were indispensable. Teams of powerful, resilient dogs pulled wooden sleds across windswept plains and over jagged ice ridges. The bond between explorers and their sled teams was deep. Survival often depended on it, but when disaster struck, whether in the form of sudden blizzards, injuries, illness, or shortages of supplies, explorers sometimes faced agonizing decisions. To save themselves, they might have to abandon a sled, and in some cases, even part with the dogs they had worked beside for months. When these sleds are found today, they are often in extraordinary condition. The Arctic cold acts like a time capsule, preserving the polished wooden runners, leather bindings, and metal fittings. Some have tools still strapped in place, or frozen food rations tucked inside. A few even bear hand-carved initials or expedition markings. silent identifiers of their original owners. To stand before such a sled is to stand in the shadow of an untold story. One imagines the creak of the runners on compact snow, the panting of dogs, the whip of wind against bundled explorers, and then the heavy silence when the sled was finally left behind. These artifacts speak not just of human endurance, but of the partnership between people and animals in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Each rediscovered sled is a frozen reminder of the bravery, desperation, and determination that drove humans into the icy unknown. 34. World War II Russian tanks preserved in lake ice. In the remote stretches of Russia's vast and frozen wilderness, there are lakes that hold a silent secret beneath their icy surfaces. Tanks from the Second World War. These war machines, once symbols of power and destruction, now rest motionless under a thick layer of ice, preserved in a world that has remained almost unchanged since the day they sank. Many of these tanks ended up in the frozen lakes during chaotic retreats or desperate advances in battles fought across the Eastern Front. In some cases, they were driven across frozen waterways as shortcuts, only for the ice to crack under their heavy weight. The cold water swallowed them whole, locking them in a frigid tomb where they would remain untouched for decades. Over time, the Arctic and Siberian cold worked as a perfect preservation chamber. The metal hulls, though weathered and rusted, have kept their shape. Some still carry markings, serial numbers, or painted insignias. Inside, the controls, seats, and ammunition storage areas remain surprisingly intact. Even the treads and bolts, once heated by the grind of battle, now lie still in icy silence. Divers and recovery teams who have explored these sites describe an otherworldly experience. Descending into the dark, frigid waters, their lights reveal the ghostly outline of the tank, sitting exactly where it came to rest decades ago. The stillness is almost overwhelming. There are no sounds except the slow exhalation of air bubbles. It is as though time stopped completely the moment the tank disappeared beneath the ice. These submerged relics are more than just remnants of machinery. They are silent witnesses to moments of desperation, bravery, and tragedy. Each one represents a small fragment of the immense and complex history of the Second World War. In the icy quiet, they stand as reminders that even the mightiest engines of war eventually become part of the natural world, as slow, unending embrace. 35. Alleged Nazi base in Antarctica legend. One of the most enduring legends of the Second World War is the tale of a secret Nazi base hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica. While historians largely dismiss it as myth, the story continues to capture the imagination. According to the legend, in the early 1940s, German expeditions traveled to Antarctica under the guise of scientific research. It is said they established hidden facilities within ice caves or even beneath massive ice shelves, far from prying eyes. In these frozen outposts, the story claims, scientists and engineers worked on advanced technologies, strange aircraft, powerful weapons, and even experimental submarines designed to operate beneath the ice. Some versions of the tale suggest that the base was supplied by U-boats, making long, secretive journeys across the Southern Ocean. Over the years, scattered evidence has been cited by believers. Unusual aerial photographs showing geometric patterns in the snow, unverified accounts of Allied ships encountering German vessels in southern waters after the war had ended, and mysterious objects detected beneath the Antarctic ice on radar scans. None of these claims have been proven, yet they feed the mystery. The remoteness of Antarctica adds to the allure of the story. It is a place where nature is harsh, access is limited, and large areas remain unexplored. This makes it the perfect stage for the imagination to wander. What might be hidden in the miles of ice, untouched for thousands of years? Could there be artifacts, documents, or machines frozen in time beneath the glaciers? In reality, official records show that while Germany did send expeditions to Antarctica in the late 1930s, they established no permanent base, and no credible evidence supports the claims of a secret wartime facility. Yet the legend persists, fueled by books, documentaries, and internet speculation. It serves as a reminder of how the coldest and most isolated corners of the Earth can inspire stories that blend history with mystery, drawing us into a realm where fact and imagination drift together beneath the eternal ice. 36. Freshwater jellyfish in Antarctic ice lakes. When people think of jellyfish, they imagine warm tropical waters, sunlight filtering through the ocean. and translucent creatures drifting with the current. Yet in one of the coldest places on Earth, deep within Antarctica, there are lakes sealed beneath layers of ice that hold an unexpected life form, freshwater jellyfish. These lakes are some of the most isolated ecosystems on the planet. They exist beneath meters, sometimes even kilometers, of solid ice, with no direct connection to the outside world. Their waters have been untouched for thousands, even millions, of years. The temperature hovers just above freezing, and sunlight never reaches the depths. Yet somehow, these delicate creatures survive. Freshwater jellyfish in these frozen environments are smaller and more fragile looking than their oceanic relatives. They are almost ghostly, their bodies pale and transparent, their slow movements barely disturbing the still water. They drift through the icy darkness, their tentacles trailing like fine threads, capturing microscopic food that floats past. Scientists believe these jellyfish may have been trapped when the lakes were first sealed off from the ocean in ancient times. Over countless generations, they adapted to their new surroundings, developing ways to survive in the cold, low-oxygen environment. Studying them offers clues about how life can endure in extreme conditions, not just on Earth, but potentially on icy moons like Europa or in. To reach these lakes, researchers must drill carefully through the thick ice without contaminating the pristine water. When they finally lower cameras and sampling devices, the first glimpses of these tiny jellyfish feel like peering into another world. It is a reminder that life can be both fragile and incredibly resilient. In the most unlikely places hidden under a frozen continent, delicate creatures continue to drift silently, living in a secret realm far from the reach of sunlight. 37. A Soviet MiG jet, frozen in Siberian tundra. In the vast, frozen expanse of Siberia, strange shapes sometimes emerge from beneath the snow and ice. One of the most haunting discoveries is that of a Soviet MiG fighter jet, preserved almost exactly as it was the day it came to rest. Its wings are dusted with frost, its fuselage gleams faintly beneath layers of ice, and it seems ready to take flight again, though it has been grounded for decades. The story of how such a machine ended up frozen in the tundra is often tied to the harsh realities of Cold War aviation. Pilots operating in remote, unforgiving territories sometimes faced mechanical failures, fuel shortages, or sudden weather changes. In certain cases, they were forced to land in the wilderness, abandoning their aircraft to the elements. The extreme cold quickly took over, locking the jet into the frozen ground. Over the years, layers of snow and ice built up, sealing the aircraft like an artifact in a glass case. The metal remains surprisingly intact, thanks to the lack of moisture in the frigid air. The cockpit still contains its dials, switches, and seat. The controls are stiff, the glass canopy clouded by frost. Yet everything speaks of a time when the machine was alive with speed and purpose. Finding such a jet is like stumbling upon a time capsule from the Soviet era. It tells a silent story of technology, ambition, and the human drive to push into dangerous frontiers. Standing beside it, surrounded by miles of untouched snow, one can almost hear the faint echo of its engines and imagine the pilot's last moments before the tundra claimed it. It is a strange kind of beauty, this fusion of human engineering and the slow, patient work of ice. The jet will remain there, preserved by the Siberian cold, until either nature reclaims it completely or history chooses to unearth it once again. 38. Volcanic eruptions recorded in ice layers. Deep within the thick ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica lies a library of the Earth's history. Instead of books, this library contains layers of ice, each one a page that was written during a single year. Snow falls, compresses into ice, and traps tiny traces of the world as it was at that moment. Within these frozen layers are the silent signatures of one of nature's most dramatic forces, volcanic eruptions. When a volcano erupts, it sends ash, dust, and sulfur particles high into the atmosphere. These tiny particles can travel thousands of kilometers before settling back down to Earth. In polar regions, they eventually fall with the snow and become locked away in the growing ice sheet. Layer by layer, year after year, the ice preserves these ancient fingerprints of fire. By drilling deep cores into the ice, scientists can trace eruptions that occurred long before written history. Some layers reveal small, local events. Others mark cataclysmic eruptions, so powerful they altered the global climate. One famous example is the eruption of Tambora in 1815, which caused the year without a summer. In ice core, The sulfur-rich layer from that eruption is still visible today. These frozen records tell not only of the eruptions themselves, but also of their impact on the Earth's systems. The thickness of a layer, its chemical composition, and the size of ash particles can help researchers determine how far the eruption spread and how much it affected temperatures and weather patterns. It is humbling to think that a volcanic plume, roaring and fierce, could leave behind such a delicate, silent trace, just a faint line in a column of ice. The eruption's heat, light, and chaos vanish, yet its memory remains in the cold. As scientists melt tiny sections of the ice in laboratories, they are reading a history written by both fire and frost. These traces remind us that Earth's most powerful forces can be preserved not in stone or metal, but in the quiet patience of ice. 39. A car swallowed by sudden ice melt. There are places where winter's grip seems unshakable, where ice roads stretch for miles and frozen lakes become seasonal highways. In such regions, vehicles are driven across frozen surfaces as if they were solid ground. Yet the ice can be deceptive. One moment it seems strong and dependable, and the next it can crack, shift, and give way, swallowing whatever rests upon it. One such story tells of a car that disappeared into the depths of a melting ice sheet. The driver had been crossing a frozen lake late in the season, unaware that the warming temperatures had thinned the ice below. The surface appeared stable, dusted with snow, but beneath it ran dark, frigid water. A sharp sound split the earth ice, giving way, and in an instant, the car tilted forward and sank. By the time help could arrive, the vehicle had vanished beneath the surface, leaving only a jagged opening in the ice. For weeks, it remained hidden, trapped in the cold darkness. Over time, shifting ice closed the hole, and winter returned with a fresh layer of snow, concealing the event almost entirely. When divers or thawing ice later revealed the car, it was an eerie sight. The windows were clouded, the paint dulled, and the interior was perfectly preserved in the cold water. Personal items, maps, gloves, perhaps even a forgotten coffee cup sat exactly where they had been on that final day. Incidents like this are reminders of nature's unpredictable power. Ice is both a pathway and a trap. It can hold the weight of trucks one month and fail under a single person the next. For those who live in icy regions, the danger is always present, and respect for the frozen world is a matter of survival. This particular car, frozen in its watery tomb, became more than just a lost vehicle. It became a story told in the region, a warning to others, and a strange kind of landmark, one that only reveals itself when nature decides to open the ice once more. 40. Abandoned scientific equipment from early polar studies. The polar regions have always been a source of fascination for scientists. From the late 19th century to the mid-20th century, expeditions set out to learn about the mysteries of ice, weather, wildlife, and the Earth's magnetic fields. These early journeys into frozen worlds were often grueling, requiring months or even years away from civilization. The men and women who took part brought with them the best tools and instruments of their time: wooden tripods, brass compasses, glass thermometers, barometers, heavy metal cameras, and boxes of fragile glass sample vials. Not all of this equipment ever returned. Harsh conditions, sudden storms, or simply the impossibility of carrying everything back meant that some tools were left behind. Today, in the deep snowfields of Greenland, Antarctica, and the Arctic islands, explorers sometimes stumble upon these relics of scientific history. They may be half buried in ice, their metal frames rimed with frost, their wooden cases cracked but still recognizable. Many of these items tell silent stories. A weather station's anemometer, its blades frozen in place, may have last spun decades ago in a fierce polar wind. A box of glass slides could hold microscopic samples of ice crystals collected in a long-forgotten study. Some finds are surprisingly well preserved to dry, cold air having shielded them from decay. Recovering this equipment is like opening a time capsule. Modern scientists can sometimes analyze old samples or compare historical weather data to present-day conditions, providing valuable insight into climate change. In other cases, the equipment is simply left where it stands, a quiet monument to the dedication of those early researchers. Standing beside a rusted metal tripod or a weathered wooden crate, one feels the connection to those who braved cold, isolation, and uncertainty for the sake of knowledge. The ice holds their tools as it holds their memory patiently, without hurry until someone stumbles upon them again. 41. Ship in a bottle. Frozen mid-lake legend. Among the many tales told in the colder parts of the world, there is one that blends reality and myth, the story of a perfectly preserved ship in a bottle, frozen in the center of a lake. According to the legend, the bottle was carried on a small boat by a solitary traveler. No one is certain why he brought it. Perhaps it was a gift, perhaps a keepsake from home. What is known is that the lake froze over suddenly, locking the man's boat in place. As the days passed, the ice grew thicker and the boat became part of the frozen landscape. At some point, the traveler vanished. Some say he walked away across the ice. Others believe he fell through a hidden crack. When spring came, the boat and the man were gone, but the bottle remained, somehow trapped beneath the ice, upright and undisturbed. The strange part of the story is that the bottle was never retrieved. Over the years, locals claimed to see it from the shore when the ice was clear, resting just below the surface. Sunlight glinting off its glass, the tiny ship inside still intact. Some claimed that the bottle shifted position slightly from year to year, as though it was slowly drifting within the ice itself. Skeptics dismissed the tale as nothing more than folklore, pointing out that glass and water would not preserve an object so perfectly for decades. Yet those who swear they have seen it describe it in vivid detail: the crisp white sails, the wooden deck, the way the tiny rigging seemed to cast faint shadows on the ship's deck, even under the dim winter light. Whether real or imagined, the legend has taken on a life of its own. It is told to travelers as a kind of riddle, a reminder that the frozen world can hold mysteries that cannot easily be explained. And perhaps that is its true purpose: not to prove that the bottle exists, but to encourage those who hear the story to look more closely at the ice, to wonder what lies just beneath its clear, cold surface. 42. Iceworms living in glaciers. In the quiet heart of certain glaciers, where temperatures remain just below freezing, lives a creature so unexpected that it feels almost like a secret whispered by the ice itself. The iceworm, barely a few centimeters long, these delicate thread-like worms make their home in the frozen world that, to most life forms, would seem impossibly hostile. Unlike most worms, which burrow in soil or sand, iceworms live directly within the ice. During the day, they remain beneath the surface, sheltered from the sun's rays. As evening falls, they slowly rise toward the top layer of snow, feeding on algae and other microscopic life trapped in the ice. Their bodies are uniquely adapted to these extreme conditions. They can survive only in cold environments and will actually die if exposed to temperatures just a few degrees above freezing. The existence of iceworms has fascinated scientists since they were first described in the late 19th century. How can a creature thrive in an environment where liquid water is scarce, food is minimal, and freezing seems inevitable? The answer lies in their biology. Their cells contain special proteins that act almost like natural antifreeze, preventing ice crystals from forming inside their bodies. This adaptation is so effective that studying iceworms might one day help humans develop better ways to preserve organs for transplantation or store biological materials. Iceworms are found primarily in glaciers of North America, especially in Alaska, British Columbia, and parts of the Pacific Northwest. Their presence can actually be used as an indicator of a glacier's health. If the worms disappear, it often signals changes in temperature or snow cover. Even more fascinating is that they migrate up and down within the ice each day, following temperature gradients in a miniature version of the daily cycles followed by much larger animals. There is something strangely comforting about their existence. Even in a place of deep cold and apparent stillness, life finds a way to flourish. To stand on a glacier at dusk and know that, just beneath your feet, thousands of tiny creatures are quietly going about their lives, is a reminder that the frozen world is never truly empty, and that nature hides its miracles in even the harshest places. 43. Sea monster carcasses found in ice legend. Throughout history, sailors have brought back tales of enormous, mysterious creatures lurking in the oceans, being so large and strange that they defied explanation. In some of the more chilling versions of these stories, the creatures were not seen alive, but discovered frozen in blocks of ice, carried by the sea into colder waters, where they became trapped. One such legend speaks of a Greenland fishing crew that spotted an enormous shape drifting in the ice floes. As they drew closer, they realized it was a massive carcass, unlike anything they had ever seen. It had the serpentine body of a giant eel, the flipped limbs of a seal, and a mouth lined with jagged, shark-like teeth. Unable to tow it back to shore, They hacked away a portion of the ice to inspect it, claiming to find flesh so tough it resisted even their sharpest knives. Some claim the skin had strange ridges, as if armored, hinting at an ancient lineage. Another story comes from Antarctic waters, where explorers allegedly encountered a frozen beast with tentacles as thick as tree trunks, its pale eyes clouded in death. Photographs were said to have been taken, though none ever surfaced publicly. Skeptics believe such sightings are misinterpretations. Rotting whale carcasses, distorted by the cold and ice, can take on bizarre shapes. Giant squid, too, can wash into polar waters and become preserved, their tentacles curling and stiffening in eerie positions. In some cases, partial remains of deep-sea creatures, unknown to science, may have fueled these icy myths. Yet the allure of the legend remains strong. Ice is the perfect preserver. It halts decay, locks details in place, and can carry objects for hundreds of miles. The idea that somewhere in the frozen oceans, a creature from the depths lies perfectly intact, waiting for the ice to release it, stirs both wonder and unease. The very possibility inspires speculation among cryptozoologists and marine biologists alike. Whether these sea monsters were real or simply the result of imagination meeting the strange effects of decay, they remind us that the oceans, like the ice, keep many secrets. Perhaps one day, when a glacier calves or a great sheet of sea ice breaks away, one of those secrets will surface again, offering proof, or perhaps just another layer of mystery to puzzle over. 44. Abandoned Cold War listening stations. During the tense decades of the Cold War, the world's polar regions were not simply barren, frozen wastelands. They were strategic vantage points. Both the United States and the Soviet Union saw the Arctic and Antarctic as potential theaters of information gathering. Hidden among the snowfields and ice caps, listening stations were established, designed to intercept radio signals, monitor submarine movements, and detect missile launches. These stations often appeared as clusters of squat buildings, dome-shaped radar arrays, and tall antenna masts. Inside, rows of equipment hummed quietly: tape recorders, signal analyzers, typewriters, and bulky communication consoles. Operators, bundled in heavy clothing, worked long shifts, scanning the static-filled airwaves for signs of activity thousands of miles away. The isolation was intense, with months passing between supply drops, and outside temperatures so low that machinery had to run constantly to avoid freezing solid. When technology advanced or political priorities shifted, some of these outposts were abandoned. The cost of dismantling them was high, and in the brutal cold, the structures themselves became strangely permanent. Today, explorers occasionally come across these frozen relics. Rusted metal panels creak in the wind, windows are frosted over, and inside, chairs sit pushed back from desks, as though the operators had simply stepped out for a moment only. They never returned. Documents may still be scattered across the floors, coded messages, supply logs, and maintenance reports. Some sites even have coffee mugs left on tables, their contents long frozen solid. The air inside these structures can feel oddly heavy, as though it still carries the quiet tension of their original purpose. In some cases, old radios still sit in place, their dials unmoved since the day the last operator tuned them. For historians, these stations are time capsules of a world divided by suspicion. For adventurers, they are reminders that the icy wilderness is not untouched by human conflict. And for the ice itself, they are just another set of objects to claim, slowly enveloping them in drifts and frost until only vague shapes remain. The hum of the machines has long faded, but the silence that replaced it feels no less watchful. 45. Ancient trade goods along Viking ice routes. The Vikings were not only fierce warriors, they were also skilled traders and explorers, navigating vast stretches of sea and land to exchange goods. In the far north, some of their trade routes passed over ice-covered terrain, linking distant communities. As glaciers and snowfields recede in modern times, archaeologists have begun finding surprising remnants of these journeys. Among the discoveries are beads of glass and amber, small silver coins, and intricately worked bronze brooches. Some of these items originated far from Scandinavia, hinting at a trade network that reached deep into Europe, the Middle East, and even Asia. It is a strange feeling to hold an object that might have been carried across icy passes by a Viking merchant over 1,000 years ago. These finds are often accompanied by fragments of sleds, lengths of rope, or wooden ski stools used to traverse the challenging terrain. In some cases, leather pouches have been found, still holding small quantities of spices or dried herbs. The cold preserved these delicate items far better than soil or open air ever could. Even the faint scent of certain herbs can sometimes still be detected, an echo from centuries past. Historians believe that some goods were lost, accidentally perhaps dropped during storms, or when travelers fell through snow. Others might have been intentionally hidden, stored in the ice for safekeeping, with the intention of returning later. Whatever the reason, the ice kept them hidden for centuries. The slow retreat of glaciers now reveals these treasures piece by piece, like pages from a long-lost book. Such discoveries are more than just artifacts. They are glimpses into the rhythms of ancient life. They remind us that even in the harshest environments, humans have sought not only to survive, but to connect, trade, and share the products of distant lands. Standing where a Viking once paused to adjust a load or check the horizon, one can almost feel the crunch of snow underfoot and hear the distant creak of wooden runners on ice. The goods they carried may have been destined for faraway markets, but in the end, they became treasures of the glacier offered back to the world by the slow melt of time. 46. Perfectly preserved woolly mammoth carcass in Siberia, in the frozen reaches of Siberia, where the ground remains locked in permafrost for most of the year. Nature has been keeping a quiet secret for tens of thousands of years. On rare occasions, the thawing earth reveals the astonishing sight of a perfectly preserved woolly mammoth. These Ice Age giants, covered in shaggy coats and bearing long curved tusks, once roamed the northern steppes in great numbers. Today, their preserved remains offer a direct link to a world long vanished. When such a mammoth is found, it is often in remarkable condition. The skin, though leathery with age, still clings to the massive frame. Tufts of reddish-brown fur remain matted on the body. In some specimens, even the eyes are intact, and the internal organs are preserved well enough for scientists to study their diet and health. The cold acts as a natural time capsule, halting decay and holding every detail in place. In some cases, liquid blood has even been found in the veins, astonishing researchers and fueling speculation about the possibilities of extracting viable cells. Discoveries like these are scientifically invaluable. By examining the stomach contents, researchers have learned what plants the mammoths ate. The wear on their teeth tells of migration patterns and seasonal movements. The DNA extracted from these remains has fueled debates about whether mammoths might one day be brought back through cloning or genetic engineering. Such studies also provide insights into the climate and ecosystems of the Pleistocene, allowing scientists to better understand how species adapt or fail to adapt to environmental changes. There is also a human element to these finds. In some cases, local herders or hunters are the first to come across the remains, seeing the tusks protruding from the melting ground. These ivory tusks can be worth a fortune, and in the harsh economic climate of Siberia, they often draw both legal and illegal interest. Some discoveries spark fierce disputes between scientists, governments, and locals over who should benefit from these ancient treasures. Standing beside such a discovery, one can feel an uncanny sense of presence, as though the mammoth had only recently fallen. The sheer scale of the animal, the way the fur catches the light, and the slow drip of meltwater from the ice encasing it all remind us of the deep history beneath our feet. These mammoths are not just fossils, they are time travelers, returned from a frozen past to tell the story of an age when the world was colder, wilder, and filled with creatures that now exist only in memory. 47.4000-year-old cave lion cub in 2017. Deep in the Siberian permafrost, researchers uncovered a discovery as delicate as it was extraordinary: the perfectly preserved body of a cave lion cub. This tiny predator, no bigger than a house cat, had lain hidden in the frozen soil for around 40,000 years. Its discovery offered a rare and intimate window into a species that once roamed alongside mammoths and other Ice Age animals. The cub's body was astonishingly intact. Its golden fur was still soft to the touch, its tiny whiskers unbroken, and even its small teeth were visible inside a slightly open mouth. The pads on its paws showed almost no wear, suggesting it had died at a very young age, possibly just weeks old. Even the folds in its skin were preserved, making it appear as if it were merely sleeping. Cave lions were among the largest big cats ever to exist, larger than modern lions and adapted for the cold with thick coats and muscular builds. They hunted in the open plains and forests of Eurasia, preying on deer, horses, and even young mammoths. Yet, despite their power, the cub's preserved body speaks not of dominance, but of vulnerability. Scientists believe the cub may have been trapped in a sudden landslide or buried during a collapse of the den, its body quickly sealed in the frozen ground. This rapid burial, combined with constant sub-zero temperatures, prevented decay for millennia. The preservation was so perfect that researchers could even identify traces of its mother's milk in its stomach. The find has allowed researchers to study the cub's DNA, revealing genetic differences from modern lions and shedding light on the evolutionary history of big cats. It has also given artists and paleoecologists clues about the animal's appearance and behavior, helping to reconstruct scenes of Ice Age life. Comparisons with other preserved cubs have suggested that cave lions may have had slightly fluffier coats than previously thought, suited to their cold environment. For those who encounter it in person, the cub inspires a mix of wonder and sadness. Its peaceful pose, as if sleeping, is a reminder that the great dramas of life and death played out in the Ice Age, just as they do today. The cub never grew to stalk the snowy plains, but through its preservation, it carries the memory of a vanished world into ours, a silent ambassador from a time when lions prowled the frost-covered lands of the north. 48. Crater left by ancient asteroid under Greenland's ice. Hidden beneath more than a kilometer of ice in northwest Greenland lies a vast impact crater, one of the largest ever discovered on Earth. For centuries, the ice sheet concealed this colossal scar, a depression more than 30 kilometers wide, caused by the collision of an asteroid or meteorite thousands, possibly millions of years ago. It was only in recent years, through radar mapping from aircraft and satellites, that scientists even realized it was there. The crater's discovery sparked intense curiosity. How big was the object that struck here? Estimates suggest it could have been a kilometer or more in diameter, traveling at tremendous speed before slamming into the planet with an energy equivalent to millions of nuclear bombs. The force of the impact would have vaporized rock, melted ice, and sent shockwaves rippling across continents. Beneath the ice, the crater's walls still show the outlines of the colossal explosion. Rock at the site bears signs of having been instantly melted and reshaped. Some researchers speculate that if the impact occurred relatively recently, within the last 100,000 years, it could have altered the climate by throwing massive amounts of dust and vapor into the atmosphere. Others believe it might have influenced the end of the last ice age, disrupting weather patterns worldwide. Reaching the crater to study it directly poses immense challenges. The thick ice above it is constantly moving, and drilling through it without contaminating the site requires careful planning. Still, scientists have managed to collect samples of rocks and sediments, looking for traces of rare metals like iridium, often found in extraterrestrial objects. The idea of such a massive event lying hidden under Greenland's peaceful, silent ice is humbling. Standing on the surface above the crater, you would see nothing but endless white stretching to the horizon, unaware that far below, the Earth's crust bears the mark of an ancient catastrophe. It is a reminder that our planet's history is filled with sudden, violent moments, many of which are still hidden beneath the quiet surface we see today. 49. Mysterious glowing lights trapped in glacial layers. Legend. Among the many legends told by explorers and mountaineers, one of the most haunting is the story of glowing lights seen within ancient glaciers. These tales describe faint, bluish or greenish glows deep inside cracks in the ice, visible only at certain times, as though the glacier holds lanterns lit from within. While no scientific study has fully confirmed their existence, the accounts are consistent enough to keep the mystery alive. Some versions of the legend suggest the lights come from minerals trapped in the ice that somehow produce luminescence when compressed. Others imagine bioluminescent organisms, frozen for centuries briefly, coming to life as melting water flows through the glacier. In the more mystical interpretations, the lights are said to be the spirits of those lost to the ice, guiding or warning travelers. People who claim to have seen them often describe the moment as eerie yet beautiful. The glow seems to shift and pulse, as though it has a rhythm of its own. In the silent, cold air, with only the creak and groan of the glacier around them, the effect can be mesmerizing. Climbers have spoken of following such glows through a maze of ice tunnels, only to have them fade away suddenly, leaving complete darkness. From a scientific standpoint, it is possible that certain optical effects could create the illusion. Light from the sun or moon might refract through layers of clear ice and air bubbles, creating shimmering patterns. Trace elements or gases trapped in the ice could also react in unexpected ways under pressure. But the fact remains, these lights have not been reproduced in laboratory conditions, and so they remain unexplained. Whether natural phenomenon or pure legend, the idea of glaciers hiding their own quiet light adds another layer of wonder to these vast frozen landscapes. It suggests that even in places we think we understand, there may still be sites that defy explanations, fleeting miracles preserved in the cold. 50 ship logs from lost polar explorers. In the golden age of polar exploration, when the Arctic and Antarctic remained largely unknown, ship logs were the lifeblood of any expedition. These journals recorded not only the technical details of navigational altitude, longitude, wind speed, and ice conditions, but also the personal thoughts and experiences of the crew. For ships that vanished or expeditions that met tragedy, the logs often went down with them, becoming frozen time capsules buried beneath ice and snow. When such logs are discovered, sometimes decades or even a century later, they offer an extraordinary glimpse into a vanished world. The handwriting, often faded but still legible, tells stories in the voices of the people who were their accounts of strange wildlife, terrifying storms, crushing ice, and moments of camaraderie among shipmates. Some entries are written in a hurried, almost desperate script, as though the writer feared they would not have another chance to record what was happening. These logs can be found sealed inside waterproof containers, wrapped in oilskin, or hidden within metal chests aboard the wrecks of ships preserved in ice. In some cases, melting glaciers have released fragments of paper carried away from the site of the disaster, leading searchers to the original location. Occasionally, an entire logbook survives intact, its ink darkened by age but its pages still crisp, protected from the elements by the frozen tomb. Beyond their historical value, ship logs help modern scientists and navigators. They provide first-hand weather records from centuries past, allowing researchers to compare ice conditions then and now, offering clues about long-term climate changes. They also give insight into human endurance, how people coped with isolation, extreme cold, and dwindling resources. Even small details, like what the crew ate on a given day, bring these long-vanished voyages vividly to life. Reading these logs is both inspiring and haunting. In one moment, an entry might describe a spectacular aurora lighting up the night sky. In the next, it might record the death of a crewmate or the sound of the hull groaning under the pressure of the ice. Each log is a bridge across time, allowing us to step aboard ships long lost to the frozen seas, and to feel, for a moment, the same biting wind that the writers once felt. 51. Ice-bound medieval sword. Finding a sword in the snow is the stuff of legend. Yet in certain high mountain passes and glaciers, archaeologists have indeed uncovered weapons lost for centuries. One of the most striking examples is the discovery of a medieval sword embedded in the ice, its blade still sharp, its hilt weathered but intact. Such finds often occur in remote areas where the ice has been retreating due to warmer temperatures. The sword might have belonged to a traveling soldier, a merchant under protection, or even a lone adventurer making their way across treacherous terrain. Whatever the case, the icy conditions preserved it in remarkable condition, preventing rust from devouring the metal. In rare instances, the weapon is found still in its scabbard, the leather stiff and brittle but astonishingly whole. The craftsmanship of these weapons tells its own story. Some bear ornate engravings or the maker's mark on the blade. Others are more utilitarian, designed purely for survival and defense. Leather bindings on the handle sometimes remain in place, hardened by centuries of freezing temperatures, while traces of cloth wrappings hint at the style and fashion of the time. Alongside the sword, researchers occasionally find fragments of clothing, belt fittings, or small personal items, offering clues about the owner's life and journey. Was the sword dropped in battle? Was it abandoned during a snowstorm? Or did its owner perish nearby, their remains long since claimed by the ice? Each theory adds another layer of mystery. The recovery process is delicate. Ice must be melted or carefully chipped away to avoid damaging the artifact. Once freed, the sword undergoes preservation treatments to prevent rapid deterioration upon exposure to air. Specialists document every detail before the weapon is stored in controlled conditions, ensuring it survives for future study. Beyond their historical significance, such discoveries stir the imagination. The image of a sword lying untouched in a glacier for hundreds of years feels almost like a scene from a myth. A weapon waiting silently for centuries before returning to the world. In reality, it is a relic of human history, a reminder of the individuals who braved mountains and ice long before modern equipment existed, and whose stories now whisper back to us through steel, leather, and frost. 52. Giant sinkholes appearing after ice melts in regions where glaciers and permafrost have persisted for thousands of years. The ground beneath has remained frozen and stable. But as ice melts, whether due to seasonal warming or long-term climate change, the land can suddenly and dramatically give way. This process has led to the formation of enormous sinkholes, some large enough to swallow entire buildings or forests. The creation of these sinkholes begins quietly. Beneath the surface, ice holds soil, rock, and sediment together like cement. As temperatures rise, the ice slowly melts, leaving behind hollow pockets. These voids grow larger over time, until the ground above can no longer support its own weight. The collapse can be sudden, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air, and leaving behind a deep, gaping pit. Some of these sinkholes measure tens of meters across and plunge down into hidden underground chambers. In the Arctic, they often reveal startling scenes: buried forests still standing upright, ancient animal remains, or layers of frozen soil untouched for tens of thousands of years. In Siberia, for instance, newly formed craters have exposed preserved bones of mammoths and other Ice Age creatures, along with trapped gases like methane, which escape in sudden bursts. For local communities, these sinkholes can be both fascinating and dangerous. Roads, buildings, and pipelines have been damaged or destroyed by unexpected collapses. Scientists study them closely, not only to understand the mechanics behind their formation, but also to track the release of greenhouse gases from previously frozen ground. From a distance, a fresh sinkhole can seem like an alien landscape, its walls layered with colors from different eras, its bottom filled with meltwater or strange mineral deposits. Standing at the edge, one is reminded of how much of the world beneath our feet remains hidden, and how the changing climate is bringing these ancient secrets, quite literally, to the surface. 53. Crystal formations growing under ice sheets. Deep beneath massive ice sheets and glaciers, far from sunlight and surface winds, lies a world of slow, delicate growth. In certain conditions, minerals carried by water seep into cracks in rock or ice, where they begin to form crystals. Over centuries or even millennia, these crystals can grow into extraordinary shapes, untouched by human hands and hidden from view beneath layers of frozen earth. The process begins when mineral-rich water from geothermal sources or underground lakes seeps upward. The freezing temperatures slow evaporation and movement, allowing the minerals to accumulate gradually. Quartz, calcite, and even rare minerals can form dazzling structures, ranging from tiny needle-like spines to broad, transparent sheets that catch and refract light in mesmerizing ways. Some of these formations have only been seen when researchers drill into the ice for core samples, or when caves beneath glaciers are explored. In a few cases, cameras lowered into crevices have revealed walls lined with shimmering crystals, like hidden treasure chambers in nature's keeping. The stillness and purity of the environment ensure that dust or impurities rarely mar the growth, resulting in clarity and perfection rarely seen in crystals formed on the surface. In certain Antarctic locations, the mineral formations are accompanied by unique microbial life, creating miniature ecosystems that have remained sealed away for hundreds of thousands of years. Studying them offers clues not only about Earth's geology, but also about how life might exist on icy moons like Europa or in. The beauty of these crystals is matched only by their fragility. Once exposed to warmer air, they can lose their sharp edges or even dissolve entirely. That is why many remain forever unseen, existing quietly in the cold darkness, growing molecule by molecule, while the ice above shifts and groans. They are a reminder that nature's artistry often happens in secret, in places we may never reach, where time moves at its own patient pace. 54. Ancient DNA rewriting human migration timelines. Deep in the frozen layers of ice and permafrost, scientists have recovered strands of ancient DNA, fragments of genetic code preserved for tens of thousands of years. These microscopic time capsules have reshaped our understanding of human history, revealing migration patterns and population shifts that were once thought impossible. When DNA is frozen shortly after an organism dies, the cold acts as a natural preservative, slowing down the degradation process to an extraordinary degree. In some cases, researchers have managed to extract genetic material from remains that are over 400,000 years old. Such discoveries are not limited to human ancestors. They include the DNA of plants, animals, and even microscopic life forms, all of which help paint a broader picture of ancient ecosystems. The significance for human history is profound. For decades, scientists believed they knew the broad strokes of when and how early humans left Africa, spread into Europe and Asia, and eventually reached the Americas. But samples recovered from permafrost and glacial ice have shown evidence of human presence in certain regions thousands of years earlier than previously thought. This has forced researchers to rewrite timelines and reconsider theories about migration routes. For example, DNA from ancient remains in Siberia has revealed a genetic link between Ice Age populations in Asia and some of the first people to settle in North America. Other findings have suggested that multiple waves of migration occurred, with groups moving back and forth across continents rather than following a single, linear path. Studying ancient DNA is not without challenges. Even when preserved in ice, the molecules are fragile and easily contaminated. It takes painstaking work in specialized laboratories to ensure that the genetic material is genuine and accurately dated. But each successful analysis offers a new piece of the puzzle, adding depth to our understanding of human origins. In a way, these frozen strands of DNA are like whispers from the distant past, carrying the memories of lives long gone. They remind us that the story of humanity is far more complex than we once imagined, with chapters still hidden beneath layers of ice, waiting to be uncovered. 55. Strange metallic fragments with no record in the vast, frozen wilderness of the polar regions. Explorers and scientists have occasionally stumbled upon metallic fragments buried deep in ice, pieces of machinery, tools, or objects with no known origin or historical record. These mysterious finds often spark intense curiosity, as they do not match the documented history of expeditions or local settlements. Some fragments are small, no larger than a coin, while others are substantial, with intricate machining or alloy compositions that hint at advanced manufacturing techniques. The question is, who made them, and how did they end up entombed in such remote, unforgiving places? One possibility is that these fragments are remnants of lost expeditions, parts of sled runners, navigation instruments, or ship fittings. Over time, drifting ice and shifting glaciers could have carried them far from their original locations. In some cases, however, metallurgical analysis has revealed alloys that were unknown during the periods when early polar exploration occurred, suggesting either misdating or a far more unusual origin. A few researchers have proposed that some of these objects could be pieces of meteorites with unusually high metal content, altered by natural processes to resemble manufactured items. Others speculate about secret military testing during the Cold War, when the Arctic and Antarctic were both strategically important and shrouded in secrecy. The fragments often show signs of extreme wear, scratches, corrosion, or bending that may have occurred as they were transported by ice over decades or centuries. Occasionally, they are found embedded alongside organic remains or within layers of compacted snow that can be dated, offering clues to their age. For scientists, these discoveries are more than just curiosities. They are opportunities to investigate the unknown. Each fragment is analyzed for its composition, structure, and possible origin, though many remain stubbornly unexplained. Standing over a shard of metal that has spent decades or centuries locked in ice, one cannot help but wonder, was it dropped by human hands, forged in a distant workshop, or born in the heart of a meteor millions of years ago? The ice keeps its secrets well, and perhaps that is part of the allure, knowing that even in the age of satellites and global maps, the frozen corners of our world can still surprise us with mysteries that defy explanation. 56. 1950s U.S. military cargo plane under Alaskan ice. In the early 1950s, during the height of the Cold War, the United States military operated numerous flights across the remote wilderness of Alaska. The state's rugged terrain and unpredictable weather made these missions both vital and dangerous. One such mission ended in tragedy when a U.S. military cargo plane vanished during a storm. its last radio transmission hinting at severe turbulence and rapidly deteriorating visibility. Search teams combed the suspected crash zone for weeks, hindered by whiteout conditions, avalanches, and shifting glacial ice. Eventually, the operation was called off, and the aircraft was presumed lost forever, swallowed by the unforgiving Alaskan wilderness. Decades passed, and the story became part of local legend. Then, in the late 20th century, a team of mountaineers and glaciologists studying the region stumbled upon a section of mangled metal protruding from a glacial wall. Upon closer inspection, the debris appeared to match the design of a 1950s military cargo plane. Excavation revealed sections of the fuselage, shattered propeller blades, and even portions of the aircraft's interior, preserved by the ice, as if frozen in time. Inside, there were fragments of uniforms, military equipment, and supply crates bearing faded stenciled markings. The ice had acted as a near-perfect preservative, preventing the usual decay that would have occurred in open air. Even the paint on some sections of the fuselage was still visible, despite decades of burial. Some personal items such as dog tags, flight manuals, and letters were recovered, adding a poignant human dimension to the discovery. Recovery efforts were slow and delicate. Glaciers are constantly moving, and each year the wreckage shifts slightly as the ice flows downhill. Some sections remain trapped deep beneath the surface, inaccessible without heavy excavation equipment. The site has since become a location of both historical and emotional significance, visited by military historians and relatives of the lost crew. The discovery serves as a reminder of the peril faced by those who ventured into Alaska's skies during an era without modern navigation systems or advanced weather forecasting. It is also a testament to how ice can preserve the past, holding it in suspended animation for generations before reluctantly revealing its secrets. Somewhere beneath the shifting glaciers, there may still be parts of the plane and, perhaps, answers to the final moments of its flight waiting to be found. 57. Bacteria with never-before-seen genetic code beneath ancient ice sheets. In lakes sealed away for millions of years, scientists have discovered bacteria, unlike any ever encountered before, microorganisms with genetic codes so unique that they expand our very definition of life on Earth. These bacteria have adapted to exist in extreme conditions, complete darkness, sub-zero temperatures, and crushing pressure from layers of ice above. The discovery often begins with carefully drilled ice cores, extracted from glaciers or frozen lakes. Each layer of ice represents a different era in Earth's history, trapping tiny pockets of ancient water. When these pockets are melted in sterile laboratory conditions, scientists can examine the life forms within. Sometimes the bacteria appear dormant, locked in a state of suspended animation for tens or even hundreds of thousands of years. Remarkably, with the right conditions, some can be revived, springing back to life after their unimaginable frozen slumber. What makes these microorganisms so astonishing is their genetic makeup. While all known life on Earth shares certain fundamental sequences in its DNA, these bacteria possess patterns that are completely unfamiliar to science. Some researchers suggest they may have evolved in isolation for so long that their genetic structure followed an entirely different evolutionary path. Others theorize that they could represent ancient lineages that existed before many modern forms of life emerged. Studying these unique genetic codes could lead to breakthroughs in biotechnology, medicine, and even our search for extraterrestrial life. If organisms can survive locked in ice for hundreds of thousands of years on Earth, it raises the possibility that similar life forms might exist beneath the frozen surfaces of moons like Europa or Enceladus. The work is not without risk. Scientists must handle these samples with extreme caution to avoid introducing ancient pathogens into modern ecosystems. All research is conducted in high-security laboratories, and the bacteria are kept isolated from the outside world. Specialized protocols ensure that even accidental contamination is virtually impossible. These discoveries remind us that the frozen landscapes of our planet are not barren wastelands, but living archives. They contain stories from Earth's distant past and hold clues to life's resilience, adaptability, and endless capacity for surprise. Every drill core pulled from the ice is like opening a sealed time capsule, offering a glimpse into a hidden world that has been waiting patiently for its moment to be seen. 58. Supposed pyramids under Antarctic ice legend. Among the many strange tales surrounding the frozen continent of Antarctica, Few capture the imagination quite like the story of supposed pyramids buried beneath its vast ice sheets. Satellite images released over the years have shown unusual, triangular formations protruding from the ice, sparking speculation across the internet and in certain fringe research circles. To some, they look uncannily like the geometric shapes of human-made pyramids, reminiscent of those in Egypt or Central America. Mainstream scientists generally explain these features as natural formations, created by wind erosion, frost action, and glacial movement over millions of years. Antarctica is home to many mountain peaks, known as Nunatak rocky summits, that rise above the surrounding ice. When partially exposed, these can appear strikingly angular, giving the illusion of deliberate construction. However, legends persist. Some theorists suggest that if Antarctica was once ice-free, a scenario supported by evidence that the continent had a warm, forested climate millions of years ago, Cliff could have been home to ancient civilizations now long lost to history. They point to the mysterious Peary race map from the early 1500s, which some claim depicts the coastline of Antarctica without ice, as potential evidence of forgotten human knowledge. Some even speculate about advanced, possibly pre-human cultures whose remnants might still lie preserved beneath the ice. Expeditions to investigate these formations are extremely rare due to the difficulty of reaching such remote areas. The continent's extreme weather, vast distances, and strict international treaties regulating access to certain regions all limit exploration. As a result, much of the debate continues to be fueled by photographs, satellite scans, and speculation rather than hands-on study. For those who love mysteries, the Antarctic pyramid legend is a perfect blend of archaeology, geology, and the allure of the unknown. It invites us to imagine that beneath the 2 miles of ice covering much of the continent, there may be structures, artifacts, or entire landscapes preserved exactly as they were thousands or even tens of thousands of years ago. Whether natural formations or remnants of something more extraordinary, these icy peaks remind us how little we truly know about the frozen frontier at the bottom of the world. In the endless white silence of Antarctica, secrets can remain hidden for an eternity, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. 59. Ancient footprints preserved in ice. Footprints are among the most personal and human of archaeological finds. Unlike tools or bones, they record a direct moment in time, a specific step taken by a living being long ago. When such footprints are preserved in ice, they offer an even more extraordinary window into the past. In remote glacial and permafrost regions, explorers and scientists have found tracks left by humans and animals thousands of years ago. These impressions were made when the ice was softer, perhaps during a seasonal melt or on the surface of a frozen lakehand, then quickly refrozen, sealing them away like a photograph in nature's own album. One remarkable discovery involved a series of human footprints found high in the Andes, likely left by a small group crossing a frozen pass in prehistoric times. The prints were so well preserved that individual toes could be seen, along with subtle signs of slipping, turning, and changes in stride. Nearby animal tracks, possibly from llamas or their wild ancestors, ran alongside them, hinting at a journey of both people and livestock. In Siberia and Alaska, scientists have found preserved paw prints of ancient wolves and the broad, rounded tracks of mammoths. These tell stories of migration, hunting, and survival in landscapes now entirely transformed by ice. Sometimes the prints lead to other preserved items, tools, fire pits, or even the remains of the creatures themselves, offering a more complete picture of a moment in time. Studying these footprints is delicate work. Ice can melt quickly under the warmth of the sun, or even from the heat of a person's body. Researchers often work in freezing conditions to prevent damage. They create high-resolution scans and molds to ensure the tracks are recorded before they vanish. Beyond their scientific value, these footprints carry an emotional weight. They allow us to stand, quite literally, in the steps of those who came before us. In the stillness of an icy landscape, it is easy to imagine the sound of crunching snow, the cold air filling ancient lungs, and the determined rhythm of feet moving forward. Each preserved track is a frozen heartbeat from the past, a reminder that long before our time, others walked these same paths, braving the same cold winds. They connect us, across millennia, to the resilience and endurance of life in some of the harshest places on Earth. 60. Lake Vostok's hidden microbial life beneath nearly 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice lies Lake Vostok, one of the largest subglacial lakes in the world, and perhaps one of the most mysterious. Completely sealed off from the outside environment for an estimated 15 million years, Lake Vostok exists in total darkness, under immense pressure, and in temperatures well below freezing. Yet despite these extreme conditions, scientists have discovered that it may harbor life. The sheer isolation of the lake makes it one of the most intriguing natural laboratories on Earth. Unlike any other known body of water, Lake Vostok has been shielded from the surface for geological ages, meaning whatever life exists there has been evolving along an entirely separate path. No sunlight penetrates the ice, so photosynthesis, the process that fuels most life on the planet, is impossible. Instead, any living organisms would have had to adapt to a completely different set of survival strategies. The first clues to Lake Vostok's biological potential came in the 1990s, when Russian researchers drilling ice cores in the area retrieved frozen water from just above the lake's liquid layer. Within that ancient ice, scientists discovered traces of microbial DNA. At first, some dismissed the findings as contamination from drilling equipment or surface microbes, but subsequent studies, using rigorous sterile techniques and international collaboration, confirmed that some of the detected organisms were unlike anything known from the outside world. These microbes were adapted to survive in an environment devoid of sunlight, feeding on minerals leached from the bedrock or on chemical reactions that occur deep under the ice. One of the most remarkable aspects of these findings is how they expand our definition of habitable environments. Life in Lake Vostok may rely on chemosynthesis, the process of converting inorganic molecules into energy, similar to life found around hydrothermal vents in the deep ocean. This discovery has profound implications for astrobiology. If microorganisms can thrive in such a cold, dark, high-pressure environment here on Earth, then it is conceivable that similar life could exist on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus, which have liquid oceans beneath their frozen crusts. Exploration of Lake Vostok has been a slow and careful process, partly because of its remoteness, and partly because of the ethical and technical challenges involved. Drilling through the thick ice risks introducing surface microbes or chemicals into a pristine ecosystem that has been undisturbed for millions of years. International agreements and environmental protocols require extreme caution, leading to the development of specialized clean drilling techniques. Even so, many scientists advocate for a minimalist approach to exploration, arguing that we should learn as much as possible from indirect methods before physically entering the lake. The microbial diversity already identified from ice core is astonishing. Some of the organisms show no close relatives in modern genetic databases, suggesting they represent entirely new branches on the tree of life. Others seem to have biochemical pathways optimized for extracting energy from iron, sulfur, and other minerals in the lakebed. The oxygen levels in Lake Vostok's waters are estimated to be unusually high, 50 times greater than typical freshwater lakes, because the overlying ice has slowly trapped and compressed ancient air bubbles over millions of years. This could provide another unique niche for life to exploit. In addition to its potential for housing alien-like organisms, Lake Vostok offers a glimpse into Earth's own ancient history. Conditions in the lake may resemble those of our planet billions of years ago, before the atmosphere was rich in oxygen, and before complex multicellular life had evolved. Studying the lake's inhabitants could reveal what strategies early life used to survive in such harsh, nutrient-limited environments. For now, Lake Vostok remains largely unexplored, a tantalizing mystery locked beneath Antarctica's ice. Advanced remote sensing technologies, improved sterile drilling methods, and perhaps even autonomous underwater robots may one day allow scientists to directly sample the lake's depths without contaminating it. Until then, it continues to be one of the last untouched frontiers on Earth. The thought that countless generations of microbes have lived, adapted, and evolved in complete isolation while entire ice ages came and went above them is both humbling and awe-inspiring. In the silent darkness, where pressure is crushing and temperatures hover below freezing, life has endured. Lake Vostok is more than a body of water. It is a frozen time capsule of persistence, a reminder that life, once begun, is remarkably difficult to extinguish. 61. Giant centipede fossils. The discovery of giant centipede fossils preserved in ice or permafrost layers is one of those scientific findings that can both fascinate and unsettle the imagination. These are not the small, quick-moving centipedes one might see in gardens or forest floors today. They are the remnants of colossal arthropods that once roamed the earth hundreds of millions of years ago, some reaching lengths of more than 2 meters. In their time, they would have been among the most formidable predators in the ecosystems they inhabited. Centipedes belong to a group of invertebrates that have an exceptionally ancient lineage. The earliest centipedes appeared over 400 million years ago, during the Silurian and Devonian periods, at a time when life was making its first major steps from water onto land. In warm, humid prehistoric forests, these enormous centipedes would have been swift hunters, using their many pairs of legs to move with remarkable speed and agility. Their front pair of legs evolved into venomous pincers, capable of grasping and immobilizing prey. The preservation of their remains in ice is rare, but it does happen in specific conditions. In some high-latitude or high-altitude regions, ancient sediments containing their fossilized exoskeletons became locked in cold storage before they could erode or decay. Ice, acting as nature's most reliable vault, can slow the processes of weathering to a near halt. This allows paleontologists to recover fossils with fine details, intact segmented armor, joint impressions, and sometimes even the patterns of their external plates. Studying these remains provides important insights into prehistoric life. Fossil evidence suggests that the enormous size of these creatures was made possible by higher oxygen levels in the atmosphere during their era. Invertebrates, which breathe through small tubes in their bodies, could grow much larger when oxygen was abundant. This period of elevated oxygen allowed for the existence of giant insects, millipedes, and centipedes, unlike anything alive today. Beyond the scientific data, the very image of these immense creatures inspires a kind of quiet awe. One can imagine them moving silently through thick fern forests, their many legs rippling in perfect coordination, their antennae sweeping the ground for vibrations. In that ancient world, the sound of their movement might have been as soft as leaves brushing together, yet their presence would have commanded attention from any smaller animal nearby. Finding such fossils in ice reminds us of the extraordinary power of natural preservation. The cold holds onto fragments of worlds long vanished, waiting for the moment when human curiosity uncovers them. Each giant centipede fossil is more than just a physical relic, is a messenger from a time when Earth's ecosystems were shaped by creatures very different from our own era. When these fossils emerge from their frozen resting places, they bridge the immense distance between the deep past and the present day, offering a rare glimpse into a truly alien chapter of life's history.